so much, Ali. And hi, everyone. Really excited to be here. As Ali said, my name is Phoebe. I'm a business director at DEPT. And we are a global digital agency pioneering tech and marketing to help our clients stay ahead, as it says on the wall over there. Didn't need to practice that. Over the last year, we've had the pleasure of working with our clients at easyJet. Who I'm sure you all know as being one of Europe's biggest airlines. And I am absolutely thrilled to be joined by Tom, who's head of brand planning and content. And now that the formalities are out of the way, forgot to press click, there's our pictures. We are here to talk about silliness, in particular strategic silliness. And that is, I suppose, an approach that's really allowed easyJet socials over the last year to take off, if you'll pardon the pun. And the theme of MadFest this year is fortune favours the bold. So I suppose this kind of felt like the perfect fit, really. And I think the best place to start is probably just to show you some of the silliness that we're referring to. So here we go. Technical problem.
Seamless.
There we go. Well, that's not playing, so that's slightly awkward. There we go.
Now I want to fight a late employee. A few pierogies.
No, let's go to Philly for some meat-filled hoagies.
No, that's not in the deal.
So much orange goodness. And I think as much as it looks great, I think the best thing about this work is that it's working. And it's delivering, if I'm right, Tom, I think a tripled equivalent media value to the business over the last 6 months since we started working together. And when we look at year-on-year figures, that reach has increased by over 100% across social platforms, which is pretty staggering. And I suppose, Tom, do you want to start by almost like taking us back a step and thinking about what we set out to do together?
Yeah, definitely. So I think if we go back about a year, our social probably looked a little bit like this that was up on the screen at the moment. So it was highly templated, didn't feel overly native to the platform. And ultimately, when we looked at the data, we just weren't getting new followers in. But the broader picture was our business was still rebuilding. We were coming out of the pandemic. And really, we were lacking a brand strategy, and the product of our social was that we didn't have that brand strategy to ladder up to. So as we created our brand strategy, the next step for us to do was to partner with DEPT. So we came to DEPT, and we asked for some help to create a content marketing strategy, and then also understand what best practice looks like on every channel. And we looked at two things. So first of all, our category, and then also what social media needs to do for us. So the low-cost airline category is highly commoditized. There's loads of choice. It's actually quite hard to rationally differentiate between brands. And so what we focus on is the emotional benefit of the category, and we call that the unbounded joy of travel. And we express that as get out there, and this is our springboard for everything that we do. And then what we need social media to do for us is basically about efficient brand reach. It's a cost-effective way for us to get as many eyeballs as possible. So we've doubled down on reach as our metric for success.
And it's not an easy job. I'm sure anyone who works in social knows that like that grabbing and retaining attention is probably one of the most difficult things to do, and it's only getting more difficult. And I suppose it's fair to say that's not necessarily kind of silliness itself wasn't where our strategy really started.
No, we definitely didn't start with silliness. So our content's about creating a community who are united by the unbounded joy of travel. So it ladders back up to our brand strategy. It's what we're about as a brand. And I guess that word joy is the emotion that we want to tap into. And there's various ways that we can deliver joy for customers. But humour and entertainment on social is one of the ways that we've done it. And I think we've probably learned and crafted over the past year about how to do it through lots of occasions of getting it wrong, but also learning when it sticks. And we've thought a lot about how people consume social media. So it's a channel where we're not just fighting for attention against our competitor set, we're actually fighting for attention across every brand that's on there. So we've got a duty to show up, to be interesting, to be engaging, and get people to stick around. And there's also really good evidence for using humour as well. Loads of neuroscience studies show the power of humour in advertising, so it's good for us to do it. It makes sense.
Yeah, completely. And like, as is the theme of Madfest, the fortune favours the bold, and I think we all know it works. Like, the weird is what you remember, and the really unusual things are what stick out to you. And I think some of the best early examples that we're going to show in a minute are where we took that kind of idea of humour, but really tapped into these like niche communities of I suppose, followers on Instagram and on TikTok, and whether that being like people who are really into their food or TikTok hun culture that I think is working really well for us at the minute. So I think you're going to talk us through a couple of these.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, to your point, we've started to look at and understand about audiences a bit better. And discoverability on social has totally changed the way that people consume it. So your For You pages and your Reels mean that you have to be producing content that resonates with a specific audience to keep them coming back and to get the algorithm working for you and prioritising that content. Mm-hmm. So I think the first example we've got is of the ASMR Bentley trend on TikTok.
easyJet.
So an example where something was happening on TikTok and we wanted to get involved, but we had to do it in a way that was relevant and make it distinctive to easyJet. So we're very lucky that we've got some sexy planes that we can make noises on. But what we did was we wanted to put our people front and centre to show their personality, to show their humour, because our 18,000 people are the faces of the brand. And actually, a lot of the ideas and the noises came up from the crew on the day of the shoot, so it was a great idea for us to get them involved.
Nice.
I think the second example we've got, which we teased earlier, is when we lent into foodies as a community.
We're off to the airport. It's time to get on the plane. We've got a bit of a discount on a trip to France or to Spain. Do I want a tatas bravas or a plate of duck à l'orange?
I've probably heard that 1,000 times.
I just know all the words.
So we're a low-cost airline, you should probably know, and promotions and sales are really important to us as a business. But that rational message doesn't always perform that well on organic social. So we came to DEPT with a brief of, okay, we've got a big orange sale coming up. How do we tap into an audience? How do we tap into a community? But how do we get that message across in a super engaging way? So DEPT recommended we partner with What Willie Cook, who's an amazing food-obsessed Instagrammer. And we just went to him with a really broad brief. And he wrote a song about the big orange sale and all the things that you can do to eat and taste your way around Europe. And this asset reach was 5 times higher than any sale post we'd ever done before. Felt really native, but actually, you know, the overall benefit is we're supporting trading, we're supporting what the business needs to do, but we've done it hopefully in a slightly more interesting and engaging way.
Yeah. I think the brief was make sales less shit, was the...
Yes. Promotional ads
You've
don't have
heard
to
of
be shit.
mouth on the shelf. Now are you ready for?
And then we've got Jane Bolton, who is famous from many moons ago when she appeared on Airline and called people a tosser on the side, which was fun. And Jane had a bit of resurgence on TikTok over the last 12 to 24 months. And this is an idea that came from our in-house team. Luke, who's an amazing social media specialist, was like, right, I want to partner with Jane and I want to do it around Christmas. Because when you go on social over Christmas, all you see is elf on a shelf, elf on a shelf, elf on a shelf. And Luke had the idea of, well, why don't we put Jane on a plane? And we just went out for a day, filmed loads of silly videos of Jane doing silly stuff. And that content series reached over 1 million people. And what it meant was we could create those memory structures at a period before our peak sales. So we're not asking people to do anything, we're just reminding people that we exist, but doing it in a humorous and playful way.
Love it. And I'm just really here for the resurgence of niche 90s British women on TikTok.
We love a hun.
Love the huns on TikTok. And I think lots of these insights are kind of fueling the strategy and how it develops. And I think it's fair to say that this kind of led us to throwing everything but the kitchen sink at the Eurovision campaign. And I think we're going to show some of the Eurovision stuff next.
This is your captain speaking. We'd like to welcome you on board this easyJet easyJet flights.
'Cause it's time for Eurovision. Are you ready? It's your show. Which is bringing us together now from Paris to Malmo.
Yeah, this one was probably the silliest one we've done. So we're very lucky to be the official airline of Eurovision for the next 3 years. And we wanted to make the most of that sponsorship across every channel. So we came to DEPT with a brief about how do we really tap into the culture of Eurovision, but ultimately, how do we get unfair share of voice? Because there's a load of eyeballs on the content, but they're all fighting with each other. So we needed to find a way to cut through. And I remember the response to the brief quite clearly when you turned around and said, so what we're going to do is we're going to write a song and we're going to reform Scooch and then we're going to shoot a music video and then we're going to stick it out on social and see how it does. And there was definitely a little bit of nervousness in the room, right? It was a big bet for us, big investment for us. But I think because we had that overall framework of like what our content's here to do, what sponsorship's here to do, it meant that we could do this idea with some confidence. And it's good that we did because it reached 14 million people. We had hundreds of people commenting saying, you need to release this song on Spotify. So we had some quite late night panicked phone calls about how you actually do that.
Trying to ring Scott Mills to
yeah,
get through.
exactly. We managed to get out on Spotify. We raised some money for UNICEF. But this was like the solidification really of us for the strategy, that you can be playful, that you can be silly, but it can have purpose. It can still deliver what you want it to deliver.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's just this like brilliant, ridiculous thing that I think is working for us. And I think we've come to find that like combination of the two is our winning formula for content. And I think this isn't just to say that the advice is to go out and do the most random, silliest, stupidest, daftest thing you can imagine. And you kind of touched on it then in terms of needing the strategy and rationale behind it. So maybe you could kind of chat us through what are your top tips to kind of doing this successfully?
Yeah, definitely. I think it has to be methodical. So you have to start with answering the question, like, what does marketing need to do for your business? And then what does social media need to do for you? So us having that brand strategy was the thing that really kicked us off, knowing that what we've got to do is unite people by the unbounded joy of travel. So then having that framework means you can be playful and you can be silly within it and you can justify pretty much every piece of content we get out. Not quite everything. So you've got to have a strategy. Yep. Second thing is, firm believer that two minds are better than one. So we have an amazing in-house social media team, but we've paired them with DEPT because when they come together, ideas flow and they'll challenge each other and they'll come up with ideas that we wouldn't have thought of on their own. So having that partnership has been really, really important for how we've grown the channel. And then I think the last thing is, like, we have to listen and learn. Mm-hmm. We definitely don't always get this right. There's stuff that we put out and it still flops. But if we're learning and we're listening every time and we work out what resonates with our audiences and what those niche communities are, we've been able to continue to grow our reach over the past year, and we're hoping that continues.
Long may it continue. Long may the silliness reign. And thank you so much, Tom. Pleasure to chat to you. And thank you for coming and listening. We'll be over at the DEPT Garden House. Stop by, say hello. We've got merch. We've got lots of lovely stuff. So thank you so much and have fab days.